Thank you. One final question on foreign policy, and then we'll open it up to questions from the floor. I'd like to, there are many countries in Africa where there are many conflicts going on at the moment. I'd like to talk about the role of the African Union, which, and we were talking earlier about this before you came in, which sometimes is viewed in the outside world, at least in the United States, as often being very overly tolerant of bad leaders. But what role Rwanda is playing in the African Union, what role you're playing given the example of Rwanda, and just how you see the African Union as a vehicle to address effectively the problem areas in Africa.
The African Union in itself and by itself is a good thing. It's that we have an African Union. So the principle is about having Africa coming together and thinking about our problems and finding ways to deal with our problems. That in itself is fair enough to have and good to have. The second is we have to recognize the complexity of the existence of African Union. It's a union of 53 or 54 states, each with probably a different background, and we have as many divergent backgrounds based on this. Different understanding, different histories, different influences that have acted upon all these countries at different times and have had different impacts on these countries. So expecting them or the countries to come together, the 53 or so, and agree on one thing every time and the right thing about dealing with a certain situation, I think clearly has a problem. There's no question about it. But at least there is this talking, there is discussion, there are debates, there is, agreeing and disagreeing and so on and so forth, and somehow we move on. But each country, and in this particular case Rwanda, makes its views very clear, irrespective of what other views that exist in the African Union. On particular issues, we are able to express our opinions. Sometimes we have people agreeing with us, or we agree with others that have the same views, and we move on. Sometimes we have others totally thinking differently, and this divides the African Union in its approach or in finding a solution, and thus, in a sense, weakens the African Union and its otherwise potential to deal with many. But at the same time, when you're talking about African Union, sometimes it's not just African Union. There are other influences acting from outside of Africa to even influence the opinions of the members of the Union. You see this in dealing with the specific cases, whether it is conflicts or it is issues of trade or different things that you have to deal with. But this only reminds me, or reminds us, or in our continent, that yes, there will always be these pressures or influences or advices that come from different corners that mean different things. But at the end of the day, Rwanda, or the Africans represented in the African Union, have also to be thinking of what is it that is in our interests, what is it that strengthens us, what is it that gives us the ability to address the different challenges we face every day, every year, even if there are these external factors that may impact Africa in different ways. So it's a challenge that goes on and that we have to keep dealing with.
Quick follow-up to that. Libya, where the African Union has been actively involved, President Zuma went to meet with President Gaddafi. Any view on a consensus in the African Union about what the resolution of the Libyan conflict should be?
There was a discussion about the Libyan conflict, and there were different opinions. Clearly, there were many opinions on the continent. Some thinking nothing should be done, the situation should be left to Gaddafi to sort out. The others saying no, it's too late. Maybe if it were to be a year ago and people had foreseen this, they would have asked, Gaddafi to address a problem that was coming, and so on and so forth. But now that it is too late, we can't say we leave it to Gaddafi or the government of Libya to be the ones to sort themselves out and sort their people out, because so many things have happened in the recent past that people have started thinking maybe different ways of dealing with the matter have to be looked at. So at the end of the discussions, a statement came out which was rather vague, just saying, ceasefire and so on, and not showing how that would be achieved or what that would mean or what it would entail in terms of providing a solution so that the conflict is ended and a peaceful resolution is found, and so on and so forth. So President Zuma of South Africa, it's true, went to Libya to meet with Gaddafi. To be honest, I'm not very sure. I have a sense of what the message he took to Gaddafi was, but what I'm not very sure about is whether it was a message from the African Union or from the people outside of the African Union. The message itself was clear and good, but who owns it and who supports it to come to the end, and does Gaddafi accept it as a way to deal with the issues on the ground, especially when he sees that the whole world is divided about how to deal with the matter. These are things that remain to be addressed.
My name's Elmira Bayrasli. I'm with the Peace Dividend Trust. You've come under a lot of criticism from a lot of human rights groups, particularly Human Rights Watch. Some of your defenders have said that these groups criticize you, but they have an outmoded definition of what human rights is. What's your definition of human rights, and how does that differ from the definition of that Human Rights Watch has?
Mm-hmm. Well, by the way, I have been involved with the human rights situations and lived a life that tells me what human rights constitute, irrespective of who else defines it. Human rights are rights that must be enjoyed by any human being. It's life, it's right to life. First, you must be able to live. It's a life that should be without injustice. It's a life that allows anybody, everybody, to feel free and express themselves and do what they feel they should do, that that does not harm somebody else who also wants to live like that. If you will, it's a broad kind of thing, but depending on where we all come from, we may be informed differently about it, but it constitutes vaguely broad things that matter to all of us. In fact, human rights, again, are not just things that must be taught by some teaching others what human rights are. Human rights are lived. They are not, they don't come out just out of instructions given to people. This is where I come from. Now, in Rwanda, for me, based on this that I'm talking about, it's about working with Rwandans, all of them together, and saying, what is our problem? How do we live? How do we live in this Rwanda and this world that gives us the kind of dignity we must have and ought to have and deserve? It's as simple as that. It's Rwandans to have their say. It's me and them and anybody else to have their say over their lives. It's not about lectures from anybody. It's not about lectures from Human Rights Watch. It's not lectures from anybody. It's about how we also as human beings decide to live and feel we live the kind of life we deserve to live. This is my definition. And in my contribution to the well-being of my country, I have done nothing short of that, of realizing that, of wanting to realize that, nothing short of that.
Thank you.